Thanks, Tim. Let's go ahead and dive down a little bit on what a data fabric for a modern manufacturing architecture will look like. So what we can see here is an overall and somewhat simplification of some of the capabilities that Qlik offers along with Snowflake, getting all types of data on the left-hand side, whether it's from SAP directly or shop floor, order management, supply chains, warehouse inventories. And we're going to get that information and we're going to be able to move it in real time. We're going to be able to transform it, get it ready for analytics. We're going to be able to apply data lineage. We're going to be able to qualify things as trusted data sets, add data quality rules. It's all going to be done via push down into Snowflake using all the different Snowflake capabilities and features. Cataloging metadata, doing everything we need to be able to capture information in a modern ecosystem of all this manufacturing content, and use that as pipelines into all kinds of different applications, whether it's data engineering, whether it's feeding it to AI/ML or generative AI, feeding it into analytics, feeding it into collaborative platforms and offerings that you can deliver via Snowflake. But it's really about getting all of the different data inside of your manufacturing architectures ready for consumption, whatever that mechanism looks like, inside of Snowflake, and then delivering that content. We just mentioned in the previous slide all those different types of data we're going to be able to access, but let's specifically focus in on SAP. SAP, of course, is the leading data provider ERP for most manufacturing companies, at least large manufacturing companies in the world. And because of that, you need to have confidence that Qlik is committed to SAP's strategy, committed to being certified with SAP, and we are, whether it's Qlik Replicate, whether it's Qlik Gold Client, Qlik Sense, or Talent Data Fabric. All of these entities have achieved certifications for working with SAP. So you can make sure that when you work with Qlik and when you work with Snowflake, that you are using a certified solution to make sure that we integrate these two technologies together with an appropriate and certified way by SAP. Understanding that we are, of course, certified for SAP, the question is, what else can Qlik do with Snowflake to get that data into the hands of the people who need to make decisions with that important manufacturing data that comes from Snowflake? And we do that with the Qlik SAP accelerators. Now, these SAP accelerators are pre-built content for SAP delivered on top of Snowflake. And why do we do this? Well, because as great as SAP is, there's also other data that needs to be brought into the equation that we just mentioned. So bringing all that data together inside of Snowflake is part of what we can extend with just raw SAP data. Whether we may have different types of SAP data, you may have HANA, you may have ECC, you may have S4 in the cloud, and you might need to bring all of that information together inside of Snowflake. Getting that data ready for analytics, not just its raw ERP state. And so what we've done is to deliver pre-built solutions around three very distinct SAP processes: orders to cash, financial analytics, and inventory management. So being able to take the raw data, transform it, manipulate it, get it ready for analytics, deliver analytic solutions with KPIs around things like liquidity and working capital pressures, how we're doing with our fulfillment, how we're doing with billing and billing inefficiencies, day sales outstanding, our customers paying on time in those as orders to cash metrics. How are we doing with our financials, our standard, AR, AP, FI, GL, CO type entities. Inventory management. How is inventory turning? Are we getting the correct material to the right place on time? So again, delivering all of this content in a pre-built solution inside of Snowflake for SAP. So of course, the next question is understanding that we have these pre-built solutions. How exactly are they developed? How are they consumed? How are they published? How are they driven to those users? So we've got a few examples, but we're going to go ahead and start with this one that we're looking at here, which is a big picture architecture of how we get data out of an SAP system. And we're going to start by leveraging what we call the SAP extractors. Now, we can, of course, use base tables or CDS views or some of the other options, but this example is based on the extractors, which, of course, are used to feed BW. We're going to use existing or custom extractors, and we're going to take that information and load it into Snowflake with real-time change data capture. We are then going to take it to the next step and start transforming that data, and we'll see this in the demo, by adding business-friendly names to the tables, adding business-friendly names to the columns, identifying what the keys are, creating transformations that are all pushed down to get the data into that analytical ready state, creating a set of data marts with conformed dimensions that solve and answer specific business problems. We're going then to take that data warehouse, data mart content, and we're going to then deliver pre-built analytical solutions with built-in metrics and those predefined applications around those use cases, like, again, orders to cash and financial analytics and inventory management. And those applications will be extended with things like Snowflake Arctic and generative AI, being able to deliver conversational analytics with Qlik answers, where I can ask questions of content that might be unstructured. And all this capability is what we deliver built into the SAP accelerators that run on top of Snowflake. So I mentioned Snowflake Arctic just a minute ago. So let's just spend a second to talk about what and how Qlik can extend this content that we've created around SAP utilizing the generative AI solutions of Snowflake Cortex. So whether we're using our analytical solution to be able to answer questions of unstructured SAP data, or whether we're going to be able to build in generative AI pipelines as part of our Qlik Talent Cloud solution, we're going to be able to leverage Arctic. And so the way that we do this is relatively the same on both engines. We are going to send data into Arctic with the RAG model scenario, so being able to augment these existing LLMs, using both Snowflake as the vector store and the embeddings engine. So we can take that information, we can augment, as well as then ask questions of the data, and Snowflake and Snowflake Arctic do all the work for us in this scenario. And we can, of course, use Mistral and some of the other models as well. But this is a great way to take this SAP data to the next level of being able to really ask questions that you can't get out of structured analytics or structured data warehousing or structured data marts, really opening this up to the users to ask any questions of the data that they might have, whether it's structured or unstructured SAP data. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look now in a live demo. Let's go ahead and hop into the demo. So as we mentioned earlier, the SAP accelerators are going to be taking data from an SAP system and loading it, transforming it, and iterating it into analytical ready data marts. Let's do a quick investigation of what this looks like for a standard manufacturing case like orders to cash. If we go back and look at the beginning, we're going to see where we have a bunch of different data that we're pulling in, whether it's fact information for financial analytics, inventory management, or orders to cash. We can see that information here. I'll go ahead and open one of these so we can see what we're looking at. So what we can see here are a list of the fact objects we need for managing our orders to cash process. Things like sales document line items, things like open sales orders, accounts receivable, because again, it's orders to cash, even though in SAP, generally they do orders to bill with sales and distribution. We've extended that because it's important to understand when we get paid as a business. So these again are all of the facts that we need. Now you'll notice they have both a combination of the friendly names and the technical names. Well, that's because we have a rules engine that allows us to set this information. So this rules engine is very important because it allows us to modify this information from a shorthand German codes into business-friendly terminology. And so we can actually see that we're doing that renaming here with a data dictionary. Now, where do we get this data dictionary? That's a good question. That's another part of what we can deliver with SAP data. And so we've actually have an application over here, a Qlik Sense application, that will go ahead and look up that definition of whether we're looking at column metadata or looking at table metadata that goes ahead and defines that for us. We'll come back to that in just a second. Now, all we're doing in this step is we're loading the data from an SAP system into Snowflake. It could be S4HANA, could be ECC on DB2, doesn't really matter. We're going to get that information, we're going to load it. Now, not all data in SAP is available to be replicated in real time. Sometimes you have to use batch. And so we can see that we've got two separate sets of dimensional data that we're pulling here. One that is available to be done in change data capture called Delta, and the other one is not. And so we actually have a batch process for a large set of these 39 dimensional elements that are not available to be change data captured. So that's fine. Our project, we can account for both types of data movement simultaneously. Now, the next step that you do, once we've loaded this data into SAP, and again, I loaded this data from SAP into Snowflake, is we're going to start manipulating it. Now, we're not manipulating it, we're not doing transformations at the loading level because we want that synchronization to be as fast as possible. But let's go ahead and look at what we're going to do in our first stage of transformation. At this layer, what we're going to be doing is we're going to start identifying the keys, and you're going to notice that the column names have now been changed. So this is important because we can look at something like KUNNR, which could be customer, could be shipped to customer, could be sold to customer, could be billed to customer. We can see that our metadata dictionary over here is doing that translation for us. So again, it could be customer number, could be head office, could be field control. And CUNNR is just one example. What if I want to look at something like VBELLIN? So VBELLIN is another set of information that has a very different, could be a lot of different things depending on how it's used. So VBELLIN could be document number, internal number, material document. Again, knowing when to use the right definition with the customer metadata to do the renaming is very important. This is driven completely by the customer's own metadata definitions in SAP, so we're taking advantage of those customizations as part of our loading process here. So again, we're starting to manipulate the data and get it ready for analytics in our, essentially what you'd call this a bronze layer of a lake house. The next stage that we're going to do is we're going to do some work with the dimensions. And what we're going to do here is we're going to start bringing all the dimensions together into a single entity. So whether they're coming from change data capture or whether they're coming from batch modes, doesn't really matter. We're going to combine that all together into a single set of conformed dimensions. And we're also going to start doing some manipulation. So we can see here, we're going to actually take the chart of accounts and we're going to change it from a long list of table information in multiple languages, because it's an OLTP, that's how SAP works, into having individual columns that are chart of accounts English or French or Spanish or German. So that's much easier for a analytical user or report writer to be able to use this information. We can do more transformations. We don't have one in here, but we could do visual ETL if we wanted to do additional transformations. And this is all pushed down into Snowflake. It is all running natively inside of Snowflake. These are all being constructed as views. The only data we are loading into Snowflake is the baseline information, the change data capture data. Everything else is a view and a schema on top of the raw data. So we're not copying the data over and over. The data is not going off to some server somewhere and then coming back into Snowflake to do transformations. Everything lands in Snowflake and stays in Snowflake. And that's very important for security, because SAP data is usually core operational data of a company. It's very important. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to start bringing everything together that we need for orders to cash. We have all the facts, we have all the dimensions that we need, and at this point, we're going to start doing our data modeling. So I can take a look at something like currency. Now, currency talks to sales document line items, sales order lines, scheduling, billing, allocations, all of that information. Sales office org talks to all of these different facts, as well as has all these additional lookups. Customer master talks to all of these different entities. So we've done all of the hard modeling based on those keys that we set up earlier. And the important part is that these keys manage or create surrogates, which we manage within the system. They can be type 1 or type 2 changing dimensions, which we manage inside the system. So we're doing a lot of complicated work on this data, and we're doing it automatically inside of our transformation layer to get it ready for analytics. And the final stage is where the rubber meets the road, where we actually start building entities that are for consumption. So we start building data marts, and we'll have our ship to customer, sold to customer, billed to customer, material master, sales document, sales office, sales market header, customer currency, all of that information now in a set of conform dimensions that ties all of these things together. Now, the other thing that we're doing is we're also consolidating the dimensions. Instead of having one layer linked to another flake, linked to another flake, linked to another flake, we're going to have one material dimension that has material text, material category, material group, material type. So it's very easy to use as an application builder or report author or however someone use this data. I don't have to worry about joins and joins and joins and joins. Qlik has done all of this work to bring everything together so that I can have these data pipelines. So that's the start of the process. We have now gone from raw SAP data to analytical ready content. Let's talk about what else we can do with this information next. So you may ask yourself, well, this is built on SAP extractors, and maybe you aren't using SAP extractors. Maybe you're using CDS views, or maybe you're using base tables. Well, that's perfectly fine. SAP accelerators are meant to be customized. They're meant to be adapted to whatever SAP infrastructure you may have as a customer. And within the context of Snowflake, this makes it very easy to land all kinds of types of data into Snowflake as our data repository. So another example of a way we can manage information is using tables. Now, these could be CDS views, or these could be information coming out of the actual ERP tables. And what we can do here is these are based on SAP modules. So instead of having orders to cash, if I just want to look at sales and distribution, or I want to look at materials management, or accounts receivables, accounts payable, controlling, project systems, FIGL, production planning, or human resources, we have pre-built content for all of that as well that we're able to deliver. And we have additional modules, whether it's procure to pay, quality assurance, shop floor management, or it's very easy to build your own. Again, the whole point of this is that we're going to allow you with your manufacturing data, whatever type of SAP system you have, or systems, you may have multiples, to be able to bring that information together, model it, and deliver it to get it ready for analytics. That's really what the point of all of this is about. So let's move on and talk a little bit about, now that we have all of this transformation data in Snowflake and ready for analytics, there's a couple different things we can do with it. We're going to go ahead and start by going ahead and analyzing the information. Now, what's great about Qlik is we're going to sit on top of Snowflake, and we're going to be able to then build applications that visualize the information. And we're going to be able to visualize not just, one fact and a couple dimensions or some real thin report you get from one of those client server tools. What you're going to be able to do is do a full-on analytical application with all the data related to the use case. So in this case, what we're talking about is the orders to cash. And so we've made this a little bit of fun. We've changed the base IDES data to reflect beer sales. And so we call this analytics and ale. And in this case, we're going to be able to look at orders, fulfillment, billing, and receivables. These are all the aspects. These are all the KPIs related to the orders to cash system. So who's ordering it? Are we fulfilling on time? Are we sending out billings in order, and are we getting paid on time? These are our key metrics. Now, this is a very high level. We can continue to dive down on this, and if we want to go specifically and look at how we're doing with our shipments, or how we're doing with our accounts receivable. So he can see now what customers are paying late, what customers are paying on time. Germany has a DSO problem that it takes 254 days to clear. That's obviously not acceptable. A good portion of our orders are in 180-day plus receivable state. That's very bad. So high level KPIs like that. Or maybe if I want to go look at how we're doing with billings by country, billings by area, we can go look at all that information. Or if I want to look at how we're doing on deliveries, right? So if I want to come over here and look at how we're doing on fulfillment. What's shipping on time, what's shipping late, where's things are arriving late, and all of those standard KPIs. Now, we've extended this ability to look at these dashboards and analytical applications by plugging in generative AI. So if we want to come down and start asking questions of information that is not contained in the pre-built visualizations, we have a great solution for that. So in this case, we're going to leverage a great partner of Snowflake and Qlik's, AWS. We're going to leverage Bedrock to ask questions of the data that aren't necessarily being answered with what's on the screen. So I'm going to ask a question of, give me a bullet point summary of how we're doing. And it will now go and ask the question of generative AI. It will go look at all the data, and it will bring me back the information of what's going on here. Total billings. Yep, that's everything I need to know. I can come in and ask a question like, are there any cities with low sales I should be concerned about? Question mark. Ask my question, and now I'm getting interactive, right? I'm getting this past being able to just, click and look. I'm able to ask questions of the data. So being able to leverage this is very important as we get there. So based on the data, here's a few cities with sales I would keep an eye on. Great. Good information. I continue to ask questions and dive down into the details. Now, speaking of details, because Qlik has all the data inside of it, I can come over and start taking a look at specific order content. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to ask a question real quick around, please write an executive memo for me and what my next steps should be. And I'm going to ask Snowflake Cortex. Well, I have to first start by coming over and asking and getting down to the specifics of looking at a particular order. So I'm going to go ahead and look at order 5907. And I will go ask Snowflake Cortex to go and do an analysis of that specific order for me. So it will go, it will run, and then we come back and return that information. I can ask other information, but now instead of asking the question at high level, I can go and ask questions of the data at low levels, right? Next step, review the sales document, verify the accuracy of the customer material, check the status of the sales document, things of that nature. So whether I want to analyze high level or low level information, I can use Snowflake Cortex, I can use AWS Bedrock and Anthropic. It's very powerful to augment these structured applications that have been built on top of SAP data with the ability to analyze content. Now, let's take this a bit further and let's talk about analyzing unstructured. So Qlik has recently released a product called Qlik Answers. And Qlik Answers is going to gives the user the ability to ask questions of unstructured data. So I'm going to go ahead and create a knowledge base here that allows us to analyze information. So I'm going to call this Test SAP, and I'm going to go ahead and create. And I could use existing data, choose from a catalog, read from an S3 bucket, or I can go and just upload some files that I have on my computer. And I happen to have some information right here around looking at information around Duff Brewing. Now, I said this was Ales and Analytics, so we're taking this a little bit further and we're going to have fun with it here. So I'm dropping some information about some specific orders that we have completed. These are invoices that were sent out to the customer, as well as some information regarding a lawsuit. Now, with a couple clicks of a button, I've now created my own knowledge base, my own RAG that sits on top of a generative AI solution. In this case, we're sitting on top of Anthropic. And what we're going to be able to do now is start indexing. And it's that easy. I uploaded some files, I hit index. It's now going to go ahead and run and start indexing the information. So in just a few seconds, that's gone ahead and run. I can see that when it was updated, when it was completed. And now I can go ahead and create an assistant. I'm going to call this Test SAP Duff. For those of you who are Simpsons fans, this should mean something to you. And now I have a question. So I can come over and start asking questions of this new information that I have just logged in here. And I can, for example, say the customer has stated the beer they ordered has coloring that is not what was expected. Do we have to replace the order? All right, well, it's going to go ahead and take a look at those invoices and actually start reading the contract that's part of the license. Manufacturer's limited warranty does not cover variations of color taste. Therefore, the coloring of the beer is received. Interesting. Okay, so if it is due to a defect or non-compliance, the customer must notify Duff sales branch within 48 hours and initiate a replacement or refund. So if it falls outside of it, then, if it's a little bit discolored, that's fine. Well, maybe I want to ask about a specific information. Which customers have ordered Sunny Extreme? Question mark. And now we'll go look through all these orders, and it will come back with who's ordered this information. Here's order number 528, 10 pallets of Sunny Extreme material. Awesome. Well, I got a call that a customer hurt himself opening a bottle of our beer. I need to understand if we have any liability. A customer has hurt themselves opening a bottle of our beer. Are we liable? Well, let's go see what the answer comes back. No, Duff Beer is not liable. Customer injury comes from opening a beer bottle. The court granted Duff Beer's motion for summary judgment. This sounds really interesting. So it's actually read through the lawsuit. I can go view one source, and it will now give me the details of how this knowledge base has made the answer to this question. Turns out Homer Simpson hurt himself opening a bottle of beer. I don't think anybody's surprised. But the point of this is it's that easy to take unstructured data, load it into Qlik, and start asking questions of it, whether it's invoices, legal documents, contracts, or any other unstructured data. So what we've done here is showed the full life cycle of being able to get data from SAP, using Snowflake to transform it, get it ready to an analytical state, feed that information into an analytical application that is then augmented with generative AI, as whether we're using our AWS partner Bedrock, whether we're using Snowflake Cortex, and then extend that even further to supporting being able to have conversational information with unstructured data. Structured data, unstructured data. Qlik and Snowflake are going to be able to provide any type of solution you need around SAP for manufacturing.